We are here today with James Jorasch and Rita J. King, the founders of Science House. Rita and James, welcome to the Transform IT Show.
Thank you so much.
So I'm so excited about this conversation. There is just so much to talk about that I almost don't know where to start. But let's start here with the actual name of Science House. You guys, I founded Science House I think a couple of years ago, right? And when we first met, you explained that you saw Science House and kind of really your entire work as the intersection of humanity and technology. And I just found that so fascinating. Let's back up a little bit. How did your respective backgrounds lead you to this point? How did you get here?
Well, I'll say that for the last 15 years before Science House, I was doing inventing work. So it was a lot of brainstorming sessions and imagining the future, right? Thinking about what people are going to want in the future.
But just to put that in context, I mean, you came to that because you were kind of living that, right? I mean, you were part of the .com. I mean, so just very briefly, what was your background there as far as that brought you here?
So I joined a company called Walker Digital. I worked for Jay Walker starting in 1995, and it was a small sort of think tank that had a number of inventors. We came up with ideas, we found patents on those ideas, and then we launched businesses around them. So Priceline was one of those businesses that we spun off among a number of others. But it was a team that was just constantly looking at the market, looking at different industries and saying, well, what's that going to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now? And what are people going to want? And how do we make that better? And then how do you instantiate that in a patent or in a brand new business that we launch?
Explain what the imagination age is and how it all plays together.
So after IBM, I started working with lots of big companies and senior leaders of big companies to understand how to navigate the rapid change in the business landscape. The real issue is you have the industrial era mindset. So when it comes to IT, there's always this legacy technology problem, but there's also a legacy mindset problem. The industrial era is over here, and it was very tangible and heavy. So jet engines, classrooms where the bell rings and everybody gets up and moves, conveyor belts, and people were educated to be factory workers or bosses at that time. It was a pretty easy design aesthetic, and people understood what they were dealing with. And over here you have the intelligence era, which is largely intangible, invisible, made of software, algorithms, code, the ubiquitous big data, which is really smart data, because lots of data without understanding how to parse it out is meaningless. So it's very difficult to take an industrial era legacy mindset and just keep going faster and faster and faster and shove it over into an intelligence era mindset. So I noticed across industries, all of the leaders I was working with had the same problem. And faster and faster and faster simply isn't going to work. We're still human. Our hardware has not upgraded as quickly as the software that is our culture and our business landscape. So I created the imagination age as a period in between. It sounds whimsical, but really imagination is the workspace of our brains. It is how our neurons make connections between ideas now. So it seemed like a great bridge concept between these two longer eras to say, in this period, we really need to understand what it means to be human.
So briefly, I know one of the things that you guys are also doing a lot of work with, and it's related to all this within specifically IT organizations, although I know it's broader than that, is this idea of culture and what you guys call culture mapping. So just briefly kind of explain how you see all that fitting into this.
Well, culture tends to be very nebulous. The language around culture is nebulous. People take for granted the culture that they're in, and they rapidly assimilate to that culture. We are conditioned from birth to just accept whatever culture we're born into as a fact, and we just start layering it into our reality, and we have elastic brains. And companies have the same exact problem. So anytime you have a culture, anytime two people start interacting, a culture starts emerging. So in the imagination age, leaders have to design the culture intentionally instead of letting it emerge by default. It's a very big mistake to let culture emerge by default. That's something I've worked on with leaders for a long time, but last year, Dr. Simon Sagmeister came to Science House and he had a tool, and everybody has a tool. So I told James, go work in your office, don't even come downstairs. If it's good, I'll let you know later. I texted him within 30 seconds of seeing this that he should come downstairs right now because it was the simplest tool I had ever seen, and the only tool I've ever seen for creating an agile culture. So instead of saying this is your culture forever now, it enables us to map in a very simple color-coded system the current state of the culture, the desired future state of the culture, and then using a system that's a mix of James's work as an inventor and my work understanding people and Simon's system to rank and prioritize the key action items that will start moving the culture in that direction, with the understanding that it's always a work in progress. So we think about software as a process of design. Why isn't culture similar to software? You know, you can design a culture that's constantly being upgraded and changed and moved around, and there's moving pieces, and this enables us to work with them to say, here's what it looks like, here's what you want it to look like.